Xbox has given us some of gaming's most legendary moments. Halo, Forza, Game Pass.
Not anymore. Things have changed.
But for every win, there has been an oh no my wallet moment where the green machine decided to, well, show us just how green it is. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 worst cash grab attempts by Xbox. Starting off with number 10, when Xbox attempted to raise console game prices. On May 1st, 2025, Microsoft put out an update saying they were going to adjust the pricing of some of their new first-party titles to $79.99, with Outer Worlds 2 having the dubious honor of being the first Xbox-published game to cost that much, which would have made it the second game priced that high for base release. In total, wasn't very well received by Xbox fans, Obsidian fans, or fans of video games of any stripe. Nobody wants $80 games. Doesn't matter if it's Nintendo or it's Xbox. Nobody wants it. And it just feels like the $70 games were made normal. Like, having two price bumps in a single console generation just doesn't feel good. Nintendo obviously kind of got away with it, but also Mario Kart World is Mario Kart, and the other game in question is Outer Worlds 2. Not that Outer Worlds is bad, it's certainly a wonderful game, but $80 is a lot to ask for, especially when, like, everybody's talking about how Xbox as a console is in danger. Fans revolted, and even the game's director came out and said Obsidian had nothing to do with the price, not to blame them. So basically, everybody except Xbox emphatically did not want this. The pre-orders must have been abysmal, or maybe the negative press was enough to dissuade them, but eventually Microsoft backed down and changed the upcoming game prices back to $70, which is still, I mean, a lot. Too much. Everyone who pre-ordered got $10 refunded, and at least for now, Microsoft and the rest of the industry isn't increasing the prices of games across the board to $80. You know, they all want to, but they're not doing it yet. I mean, Donkey Kong Bonanza was $70, which is still a lot. So this was an attempted cash grab. Not necessarily a successful one, but still. At number 9, Xbox Game Pass getting a 50% price hike. With hundreds of games available as part of the Game Pass catalog, Xbox subscription game service is still one of the best deals in gaming for people who want to play a lot of games for not a lot of money, or at least was before Microsoft decided to increase the price of the service by a wallet-shredding 50%. The cost of Game Pass Ultimate, the highest tier of the service, and the one you need to have if you want access to their day one games, was $20 a month, which is a pretty solid price for what they were offering. At least it used to be as of October. It's $30 a month now. That's a lot compared to $20 a month. You're telling me I have to pay more to own nothing and be happy? In the case of Ultimate, you are getting a few new perks here and there. They added the Ubisoft catalog and improved cloud streaming somewhat. I just want to repeat that. Somewhat. With access to a few more devices. It's not like they just increased the price and didn't add anything, but the value doesn't add up. The new stuff you're getting, which is mostly a back catalog of Ubisoft games, doesn't seem worth an extra $10 a month. Especially, like, if you asked me, if you said, hey, would you pay $10 a month for the Ubisoft catalog? I'd be like, probably not. It does get worse, though. A lot of the perks that used to be provided by Game Pass Ultimate have been cut or altered severely to make the price less appealing. The Call of Duty points discount, for instance, that's gone, along with all the DLC discounts you used to get for having Game Pass. Xbox replaced all that with the much less valuable Xbox reward points. All that, and they're advertising the changes to Game Pass with a full-screen ad when you turn on the freaking console. The ad tells you all the new stuff you're getting, but it neglects to mention that it's 50% more expensive. It's so weird that they left that out of the marketing copy. I mean, at least the pop-up clarifies that the subscription changes aren't going to go into effect till November 4th, so there is time to cancel. I think we're quickly getting to a point where the price of Game Pass Ultimate isn't really worth what you're getting. For $20, it was a decent deal. That's the actual inflation-adjusted price, might I add. The original price of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate was $14.99. If you adjust it for inflation today, that price should be $19 and some odd cents. Now, of course, these people are attempting to outrun inflation because they know that the gaming industry has changes on the way. Why else do you think they're trying to push all this free-to-play shit on us that we don't like? Somebody needs to do something for single-player games. In all seriousness, somebody needs to do something. Maybe we'll try and do something. We'll see. I mean, there's a reason why usually these kinds of price increases are gradual. It is a large part of it, whether the inflation-adjusted price is correct or not. But to just toss a 50% price increase, a $10 bump on a $20 product out of nowhere. It's kind of crazy, is it not? Like, if it became $21.99, would anybody really be talking about it like this? I feel like no, but also it's important to understand that this is the herald of things to come. Microsoft sucks, but every company who is primarily concerned with shareholders especially is going to do this same shit to you. No matter how good you think they are, keep your eyes open. And at number 8, the Xbox console price hike. Microsoft may have backed down on game prices, but I mean, there was that thing we just talked about a second ago, and then also the hardware. Hardware is just going up. In most normal generations, consoles get cheaper after launch, but with the Series X, it's somehow gotten more expensive. Not a little either. In some cases, it's massive. The Series X console went from $499 to $599. That's a $100 increase. Normally, you see like a $100 decrease. The Series S hasn't been spared either. It's going up by $80. Not even controllers and headsets are spared. The Elite wireless controllers are a full $199 up from $179. The wireless headset had a $10 increase to $120. That wasn't even the only increase. They've announced a second increase in prices for all the consoles just shortly after the first. Now a Series X is going to be even more expensive. They pushed that price up by another $50. It's $650 now for a console that used to go for $500. Like, there is a lot of reasons that I detailed some of them in the previous point why Microsoft is increasing prices. And it ain't just Microsoft. Nintendo did it. Sony did it. I mean, Nintendo kind of did it when they introduced a new console generation, so there's slightly more of an excuse there than Sony and Microsoft, but it's a sucky situation all around. It's hard not to see these prices as cash grab, but also that's what the economy is. The economy is a cash grab. You can factor in all the economic issues you want, and they are real, and they do have effects. But the biggest part is that this is inherently how this stuff works. It's always going to be like this. Like, even if you have a few good companies that aren't shareholder-based and run by a lunatic who is just like, I want to make good games. That's one company, and eventually somebody else is probably going to suck them up into the vortex of the stock market. People get angry at me for saying this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to explain how bad this sucks for real. It's much worse than they're greedy. It's they can't do anything else. They will only ever do this. And number 7 is the Xbox Series memory cards. When I first heard about the memory cards for the Xbox Series X, I was kind of intrigued. It sounded like a throwback to old consoles where storage was as easy as plugging in and playing. It sounded like a new version of the classic memory card, which is essentially what it is. Like, the problem is not unlike that of the PlayStation Vita's memory cards. The problem here is that it's not 1995 anymore, and storage solutions are ubiquitous. The PS5 lets you crack open the case and swap in a compatible internal SSD, and you can hook up external drives for storage that come from any brand. But Xbox over here has to be special, and the only way to expand storage is to get these special Seagate expansion cards. You can hook an external hard drive up, but you can only play old Xbox 360 and Xbox One games on it, not Series X/S stuff. If you want to play games actually built for the console, you have to use the cards, which are, let me be clear, very stupidly expensive. Seriously, $150 for a terabyte of some extra storage, $250 for 2, and an eye-watering $430 for 4 terabytes. Just for comparison's sake, you can get a 4 terabyte PS5 compatible SSD for half of that price. And you can buy most of Microsoft's big game releases there too. So, these price hikes they don't make sense. They're driving people away. I think it's intentional. Either that or just really stupid and really greedy. Very possible, of course. The only thing that doesn't make these things worse than the Vita's much maligned proprietary memory cards is that at least with the Xbox, it does have internal storage, so you don't necessarily have to get a storage expansion. That's one thing I'll give to Microsoft here. These things may be absurdly overpriced, but at least you aren't forced to buy them. And number 6 is the Xbox 360 Wi-Fi adapter. The 360 was an awesome console, aside from, the annoying stuff about it. It had a ton of great games, more or less helped kick off the entire indie boom and carry the entire 7th generation of consoles on its back, but the original fat 360 was missing some pretty essential features. The internal storage, for one, very small, necessitating some detachable storage, and there wasn't any Wi-Fi. Yeah, on this internet-enabled console, there was no way to connect online wirelessly, at least at first. Later console revisions like the Slim and the E do have built-in Wi-Fi, but that original fat model had nothing. You had an Ethernet port, and and that was it. So, if your console was far away from your router, you were SOL, unless you forked over $80, and that's $2,009, which is $120 in today dollars. I'm going to be honest here, putting it in perspective like that, it kind of shocks me. I don't remember them being that expensive, but it also probably explains why I held off so long getting one. $80 extra, just so your console could go online. Like, at least there were cheaper third-party solutions, but the fact that there was no built-in Wi-Fi just really sucked. At number 5 is the original Xbox One price. There's so much to say about the botched reveal of the Xbox One and the many suspicious things Microsoft was trying to do with 24-hour checkups that required Kinects that would have a camera pointed at your living room at all times. But most of the stuff they were trying to do was simply sinister, not exactly cash grabby in any direct way. I guess you could say their attempts to undermine the used market would, in a roundabout way, lead to Xbox making more money, but it's kind of a stretch to fit into a list that would be straightforward. A cash grab is one of those things where you know it when you see it. And looking back at the initial Xbox One launch, yeah, ooh, big cash grab. Not because all the things most people talked about when discussing the massive screw-up that was the Xbox One rollout, but for one simple and obvious reason. They bundled in the Kinect with every console. The Kinect could have its own price on this list because for as innovative of an idea as it was, the damn thing just didn't work. It was unresponsive, it was an awkward piece of junk, and it was going to be a camera pointed at your living room at all times, which is, it's interesting. Deserves to be in the dustbin of history. Was the Xbox's Virtual Boy. Well, you know what? It was worse. Virtual Boy had a good Wario game on it. The Kinect was just this wretched piece of hardware. For some insane reason, Microsoft forced early adopters of the Xbox One to buy with the console. It wasn't long before they backed down and offered a version without the Kinect for $100 less. So the early buyers were buying an extra $100 of worthless device bolted onto their console that barely even got any support from the Xbox One. At least with the Xbox's other overpriced peripherals, there was some kind of function, but the Kinect was just collecting dust as a $100 paperweight. The inclusion with the initial rollout was a total cash grab, but at least they came to their senses and backed off. At number 4 is Microsoft points. Anybody remember these things? Between 2005 and 2013, you had to use Microsoft points to buy anything on the Xbox marketplace. Unlike how it works now, where you can just buy things directly from the store. Back when Microsoft points were a thing, you had to buy this stuff in certain amounts. $400 for $5, $800 for $10. It's arbitrary, the numbers, by the way. They don't correlate to, simple 5 and 10. Like, if 500 points was $5, oh, they're pennies. It's at least just converting your money into something that makes sense. But no, $400 for $5, $800 for $10, blah, blah, blah. Bob's your uncle. It wasn't that unusual of a system at the time, but the way Microsoft did it was super annoying, and it did feel low-key cash grabby a lot of the time. The problem here is that you had to buy at minimum $5, right? The prices of the games, however, were not consistent with the denominations. Games would sell for 1,000 points a lot of the time, meaning you spend $15 in Microsoft points to buy a game that costs about $12. Sure, you could, in theory, spend those extra points elsewhere, buy an avatar picture or something cheap, but you're essentially being forced to put more money in than whatever the thing you want to buy is actually worth. It wasn't the case for everything, but it was a common trick they'd pull on their big Xbox Live indie games, and it was never not annoying. The system we have now has it so you could just buy things with money for the amount that they cost, which is, of course, much better. There's no laundering process involved, which is literally what this is. Can you imagine how many Microsoft points are just sitting in accounts that were unaccounted for? It's gotta be some significant amount of money. And number 3 is the Red Ring of Death. I know what you're thinking. Not a cash grab, that's an error code, man. That's gonna take some explaining, but I think you'll see my logic here. We've talked about the infamous 3 red lights error code on the Xbox many times before. It's one of the defining features of the system that proved to be such a huge problem it ended up costing Microsoft $1.15 billion to correct. Xbox may have been the dominant system in the 7th generation, but the Red Ring of Death nearly killed all the momentum they had built. To their credit, they did at least seriously address the problem. They fixed consoles that got returned free of charge, and if the situation had been handled worse than that, probably could have tanked Xbox entirely, but they managed to pull through, and for that I do think they deserve some credit and respect. Like, they had a serious problem, they addressed it accordingly in a way that took care of customers, which is not common even back then. Companies exist to try to get out of anything they're liable for. It feels like they get off that way. Anyway, the problem that I'm talking about is that the Red Ring of Death was in many ways a problem of their own making. With the PlayStation 3 delayed, Xbox wanted the 2005 holiday season to themselves, But to do that, they rushed out the production of the console, and that's not just vague speculation. We know that the Xbox 360 was rushed. Internal memos from Xbox reveal that engineers knew the production consoles had issues. We know the Xbox didn't have a proper testing setup before release. Engineers went as far to suggest that production should be shut down entirely, but Microsoft wanted those consoles out before the PlayStation 3. So they put out a console they were fully aware had all of the issues that caused the whole thing. 68% of the consoles manufactured, 68, that's 2% shy of 70%. 7 out of 10 consoles ended up in the bone pile. They were unshippable, and out of those 32 remaining good consoles, it was a 33% failure rate. So good, it's a relative word here. I mean, it's generally a relative word, but here it's relative. In 2005, Microsoft didn't know about the Red Ring of Death specifically, but they were fully aware that they were getting defective consoles at a very high rate. They didn't have proper testing, so the console was just not ready for prime time, and knowing that, instead of delay the console and not lose $1.15 billion, they decided to ship knowing full well that many customers were probably going to get bad systems. To me, that is a cash grab. They saw the potential for money and enjoyed the risks. It may not have worked out for them, it may have cost them money in the long run, but also they did get that year to themselves that Christmas, and I do think that probably did contribute a lot to their dominance that console cycle. So was it worth it? I don't know, especially since how dog shit the Xbox brand is now. Oh, we established brand dominance with a ruthless move that cost us $1 billion, and then only, X many years later, they've squandered basically everything. They killed Arcane Austin. I know that's not related to this, but the acquisition of Bethesda was pure hubris, and that hubris likely came from the dominance established with this, ultimately, cash grab. And number 2, Age of Mythology Extended Edition's terrible expansion pack. This one's more of the PC side of Microsoft's gaming business, but if they're gonna say Xbox is everywhere, then friends, Xbox is everywhere. I'm sorry, this counts. The fact is, when it comes to games, Xbox and Microsoft rarely go full cash grab, but this one, oh, did they? This is 100% the cash grab. It is awful. Back in 2014, Microsoft released an Age of Mythology Extended Edition on Steam, an updated remaster of the beloved 2002 RTS game. Wasn't the best remaster, but it wasn't awful or anything, just kind of bare bones. Then in 2016, they hit fans of the franchise with an exciting surprise, a new expansion coming out 13 years after the last one that introduces an entirely new civilization to the game, the Chinese. This was all really exciting for old school fans. I mean, a new faction and a new campaign, this would be awesome. Only it wasn't awesome, it was actually terrible. Now, I don't want to throw this expansion's developers under the bus. I'm sure they did the best that they could with what they were given, but it was not good. The Chinese faction is poorly balanced, the mythological units are lame and barely seem connected to any real Chinese mythology, and almost everything is just poorly reskinned versions of models that were already in the game. All of the new models suck, the faction was just janky and ugly looking all around, and to add insult to injury, the campaign is a buggy mess that constantly breaks for no apparent reason. It is an awful, half-baked expansion from top to bottom. At the time, it was exciting the game was getting something new, but it was kind of a monkey's paw situation. At least with the recent full remake of the game, they finally went in and remade the faction into something better. The Tales of the Dragon expansion was a lame cash grab that's been completely replaced in the retold version of the game, and obviously nobody's mad about that. And finally, at number 1, the Games for Windows Live subscription. Microsoft's first attempt at bringing the Xbox console ecosystem to the PC. It was such a disaster that it took years to sort through. After the service depreciated, a lot of games that relied on it were essentially unplayable. It took until 2021 for Fallout 3 to finally remove its Games for Windows Live crap. There's so much to talk about with this ill-fated service. It's just one of the worst. And it was among the most buggy and sloppy things in Microsoft's long history. And that is really saying something. That's not the cash grab part, though. Sure, Games for Windows Live sucked and it was terrible. It would crash constantly and sometimes delete your saves, but it wasn't really a cash grab exactly. Well, outside the fact that if you wanted to play with Xbox players, one of the most touted features for Games for Windows Live, its ability to crossplay between PC and Xbox players. If you wanted to do that, and I'm serious here, you had to pay for an Xbox Gold subscription, which at the time was $49.99. It was the annual price, so I don't know if you had to to buy the gold yearly to use crossplay, or the source at this time just exaggerating, and you could buy a monthly subscription. But either way, they were essentially asking PC players to pay to use features that were free then and are free now. You also had to pay if you wanted to use matchmaking. You could play a live game online for free, but you were using the server browser. No matchmaking service for you. The whole thing was completely ridiculous. I have no idea how they thought they could get away with it, but they clearly did. Ultimately, they didn't get away with it, though. Like, they had to give up on the entire service pretty quickly. It was supposed to be their Microsoft answer to Steam. Microsoft Steam, Just laughable in hindsight. The whole thing was just a terrible idea, implemented in like the worst possible way. But the real cash grab of the whole thing was they expected PC players to pay to play games online, something PC players have been doing for free for decades, and is still, to this day, the standard way to play games online on computers. Most of the games that use games for Windows Live didn't even have crossplay. The first game for the service, Halo 2, didn't even support the feature. You know, the thing they were charging people for. And it's one of the main selling points for games for Windows Live. Their biggest game didn't even use it. That's the service in a nutshell, though. Just a mess from top to bottom. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.